Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill. Joining me today are Graham Noble, Dave Patterson, John Clark, and Andrew Moran. This is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. A federal court has ruled that an open carry ban affecting about 95% of California's population is unconstitutional when it comes to the Second Amendment. The right of the people to keep and bear arms, no state infringes, quite like the golden one. All right. A big win that can lead to more loosening of the reins, or just a little gimme to keep the 2A alive and kicking. I'm just going to roll with this. This is going to be a fun one. So how about Graham? Well, let's start with you.
You know, this is what they've done with a lot of Democrat states and a lot of Democrat-run cities, is that they try to do a kind of an end around the Second Amendment by saying, well, look, you know, yes, you have the right to keep and bear arms, as it says in the Second Amendment. However, for the sake of public safety and blah, 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 we're going to say there are certain places that you can't carry, a gun, and these are all the places. And as with Hawaii did this, and Hawaii is now facing problems for it, and California did it, and various other places where there were so many zones in which they were saying you can't carry your gun here, you can't carry your gun within 16 miles of a school, and all this kind of stuff. Okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. That's what they try to do. They try to make these gun-free zones so large and so commonplace that they all overlap, and in the end it gets to the point where effectively if you are someone who actually abides by these laws, and I'm going to make no comment about that for myself, but if you're someone who actually follows these laws, then you don't get to carry your gun anywhere. That
doesn't happen here in Indiana. That does not happen.
Well, it doesn't happen here in South Louisiana, or even where I'm at. Yeah, so I think these whole bans on open carrying in certain public spaces, that stuff has got to come to a head at some point. I think the people who are imposing those kind of bans are eventually going to lose. If you're going to say to somebody, you cannot carry in a public park, or you cannot carry within, I don't know, 100 feet or 200 feet of a school or something like that, well, then you've got to provide some kind of rationale for that. Why is it? What is the reasoning? Have you got any data to back up the fact that stopping someone carrying a gun within the 300 yards of a school is actually saving any lives? And I think that's where the problem, because they don't have any data to say, look, we're basing these bans on solid data that tells us that it's saving lives, and they don't have that data. And so eventually I think, they're going to lose those fights.
Well, let's go to the exact opposite of Indiana and Louisiana. That would be Canada. Andrew, jump in there.
But I'll just make I'll make a facetious remark. I'll say that you know what California needs, or America needs? They need a foreign country to go to California and conduct a regime change operation, because California is denying its citizens its constitutional Second Amendment rights. I think that.
That's kind of.
But anyway, no. But I'm just joking. I'm just being facetious. I would say, okay, so up here in Canada, we pretty much don't have gun rights. I mean, the consensus up here is that you should only have a gun if you go hunting. But what's funny about that is that before Trudeau left office, he wanted to ban hunting rifles, but he only backpedaled from that regulation because he received pushback from Native Americans. Because Native Americans, they need their weapons to do their hunting and to gather food for the native those native communities. So that's also, if you are a progressive, or if you were a victim, a minority, and you support gun rights, then you will get your gun rights up here in Canada. But for generally, we just don't approve of guns.
Yeah, that's too bad. Anyway. John Clark, how about Vermont? Talk to us.
Well, Vermont historically had pretty loose gun laws, a lot of liberties. They have been tightened up, especially after Sandy Hook. But we have a lot of those laws that that Graham mentioned, as far as, so my wife can't take her 9mm with her to the hospital where she works, making that a shooting gallery for any would-be shooters. You're like advertising, let's come shoot here. And as Graham says, there's no data to back that up. I grew up in a school in Connecticut where we had an armed police officer all the time. And that now people say, oh, that's terrible that we would have to live in a country where we would protect our children. And I think that that's what the underlying message here, and this is something Graham also wrote about for Liberty Nation a few weeks or a month ago, is that every time that there's an attack with guns or a mass shooting or other event, then you see the usual voices saying, oh, we have to ban all guns. We have to be like wonderful Canada, or we don't like guns. We don't like evil things. Don't say bad words because we don't like hearing them. Sorry, I'm making fun of Canada, not you. Andrew, you're stuck there. I've invited you to come live.
Andrew's getting more airtime on this show than ever.
Yeah, it's not even econ. But I think more and more people look at these same incidents and go, wow, that's a good reason for me to have a gun, to defend myself. And so trying to take away guns from lawful gun owners when it's more apparent than ever that we need them. We've got drug trafficking and open borders and mentally ill people that are, that are doing horrible things everywhere. That's an argument for more citizens to have guns. And that's what was emphasized in the California case. Under Bruin, I believe it is the Supreme Court said, we're going to look at what historically people use, because it's not determined by data. As Graham says, we don't have it. There is no data to prove these things because they're specious claims. But even if there were data, you couldn't get around the law. And the law is that people have the liberties. They're not going to be whittled away by the government from law-abiding citizens based on a justification of using criminals as the reason. And that's just unraveling. So they're going to keep crying at the moon about how they want to ban all guns. And I just think more and more public opinion is moving in the opposite direction.
Dave.
Well, to kind of follow up on John's point, I thought it was very interesting that the federal court determined that the majority finding was based on historical precedent, and the fact that it has been an historical fact that over the years that open carry has been basically the law of the land, and to ban, even if it's a portion of the population, in this case counties with more than 200,000 people, would be contrary to the historical precedent that's been set.
I think this is a decent step in the right direction, and don't be surprised if more California gun laws crash. But, there is hope. Thanks, panel, and thanks for watching. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, run them all. As well, Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Stop by and see our new aggregate polling operation, The Public Square. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today, and get your fix of free thinking and free speech at libertynation.com.